Good Tuesday afternoon, everybody. Jim Williams here, and our special guest today is Spencer McLaughlin. You know him, you love him from Locked On Pac-12.
Some people might love me, other people perhaps not so much.
Not so much.
That depends on which part of the country you're talking about.
And when, yes. Spencer, it's a pleasure to have you as a guest, my friend. Or be careful when you hit something. Anyway, it's we got some fun stuff talking about. You've had some challenges with the Pac-12, but you got through it. I mean, you did well. What's a mother to do? You got a conference out there that you started off with 12, you went to 10, you went to 9, you went to 2, and now it is what it is.
It's still 2.
It's still 2.
I just gotta like take out the 1 in this flag. Like if I move my hand just perfectly,
right
there you go.
You're all set.
There it is, Pac-2, baby.
But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about, the trials and tribulations of a play-by-play guy and someone in college like yourself, where things aren't always everything as glamorous as it may seem. You've got challenges. I remember doing, many games that where you had a situation where you're sitting there going, okay, not only do we have to get from here to there, I'm not sure how you get there. And, some of these college towns are not easy to get to. And, the broadcasts are not as easily done as they come off. Now, you tell us a little bit about what you do, and so that we can understand some of the challenges you face. Now, you've got a couple of really good ones. You were at the game. You were at ASU.
Yeah,
and BYU.
Yeah. Last couple weeks were really, really fun being in Power 5 stadiums and seeing those environments, and it was really, really cool. And I definitely have a log in my head of everywhere that I've ever been to broadcast a game, whether as a student or now as I guess professional. I don't know. I'm too young to consider myself that, so we'll just say a post-college broadcaster is what I'd kind of consider myself. But some people might not know that I'm the radio play-by-play voice of Southern Utah University and all their athletics on KSUB radio as of this year, and for the last couple of years I've done a lot of play-by-play for them on ESPN Plus for all of their sports, covering everything from football to gymnastics and softball. It is true. I do. It's not technically play-by-play. It's more like hosting, but I commentate for gymnastics meets. So it's been so much fun, and I love it. It is definitely a grind when you're in season, football especially. Sure. Last week for BYU, I was doing so many media appearances and trying to coordinate that, and talking with coaches, and prepping for the actual broadcast and play-by-play as well. And then week 1 against Arizona State, we go down and have a 2.5-hour lightning delay in the middle of the broadcast, and then we get back on, and then we come and finish the game, and then I didn't get back to my house here in Cedar City until about 5:45, 6 in the morning local time. So it can be it can be a lot, but you either love it or you don't, and I couldn't love it more. It's something that geographically, I actually am in my position with Locked On as a host of Locked On Pac-12 and Locked On Ducks because of my play-by-play job with Southern Utah. That's where I met Locked On's chief operating officer, and then she asked if I wanted to get involved with the Ducks. I said yes. Then I got involved with Pac-12, and then everything's just kind of taken off from there. So, it's a grind. There's a lot of work. There are a lot of people, as you know, Jim, behind the scenes that bring you a broadcast, even just on the radio, but especially on television. It is complicated. There are wires and cables and cameras and people and internet connections that go away, and connecting with Bristol and everything like that. Right. It's a lot, and I'm the person who people see and hear the most. I'm far from the only person involved in such matters, but it's team effort, and I couldn't love it more.
It's funny, doing Big Ten football game of the week and SEC. When I would tell people that we would go in Thursday for a Saturday game, they could they like they looked at you like,
Yeah.
how, is it are you that slow to get these things done? It's like, but no, but you've got cameras, you've got we had 6, 8, 10, 12 cameras. We have 2 trucks. You have a group of over 100 people, basically encamped in building a little mini city there for a minute, and you're in and out of town, and then of course the game's over in 3 hours, and that's it, and you're on your way. So it took you 3 days to get 3 hours set up, but
Yep.
as you say, it's a difficult and challenging situation, but one which I think, Spencer, from your standpoint, you're at a time in your career, and I think that what you're doing with Southern Utah, it's going to start getting more fun because there's going to be more opportunities because of the streaming situations, and I think that's what we're seeing right now. When I got involved in this back in the late '70s, early '80s, there wasn't those opportunities, and I
Was it
think
a little bit different back then, Jim?
little bit, just a little teeny
Just a
bit.
little.
By the way, yeah, the first, I'll tell you how bad it was. We used to do ESPN. I did ESPN's NASL soccer and some basketball games back in those days. Anyway, we used to rush to cash the checks because we were thinking this is never going to happen. Who in their right mind is going to want to watch 24 hours of sports 7 days a week? That's just crazy. And we kept seeing the same damn show that we did, a month later is still playing. Bill Fitz, who was the production head at that time, Bill used to send us the ESPN banners and say, do not get them taken. Do not allow them to be, because we only had a certain amount of banners that they would give us. So, you have 3 games, and if we had a couple of banners stolen, you get in trouble. So, yeah, it was a different thing back then. There wasn't the worldwide leader in sports in those days, but it was fun, and it's now in the streaming situation for you in the ESPN3 and ESPN Plus and that whole situation with the streaming. There's more opportunities and there's more options for people to watch.
Yeah, and it's something. I mean, ESPN Plus is quite literally the reason that I first got involved with Southern Utah University. Is I inquired about a potential play-by-play opportunity. There wasn't a specific role, but I knew they had these sports through somebody who I knew that works for SUU, and then when they first responded to me, they said, no, we can't bring anybody on right now, but next year we might be able to. And I thought, oh, okay, great, well, maybe we'll be able to work something out next year. Then they came back to me about a month later and said, yeah, we just, as a conference, they were in the Big Sky at the time, now they've moved into the WAC, and for football, the United Athletic Conference. They had in 2021 moved into an arrangement and just announced the deal with ESPN Plus to broadcast the sports. The Big Sky had, and the WAC had announced the same deal. So suddenly they had all these broadcasts that they didn't want to, have to have no announcer for sometimes, or they didn't want to have to be scrambling to find a play-by-play person. So that's how I first got there, and it's definitely been good for me. And I've people have asked me about that before, like, oh, what's it going to look like? What's it going to be? It's like, well, the world of streaming is here. Like this is what we have. The transition is happening as you and I are having this conversation. Like it has been. I mean, this Saturday, Jim, there is a Power 5 non-conference football matchup. Washington at Michigan State. It's exclusively on Peacock.
Right.
It's exclusively there's going to be an NFL playoff game, not in 3 years, not in 5 years, this year. Exclusively on Peacock. And look, I'm not saying that cable television is about to go away entirely, but this transition, like when I was in school growing up and studying things in history class, I always had the thought of like, boy, I wonder what it was like to undergo, that sort of change in society, what it was like to live through that. That is a moment that we are living through right now. And I mean, there are things that I like about streaming. There are things I hate about streaming. Like, I don't know if Jim, why in the world I have to sign in to the same streaming service seemingly every other time that I use it. It's like if you sign in to an app on a specific TV, shouldn't
Right.
it know that that is my TV? Like,
You would
why does
hope.
it sign me out if I don't use it for like 72 hours and then I have to go activate it? Like, that is mind-numbingly annoying. And I
Right.
think everybody has that frustration. And then sometimes the sign-ins don't work. I've had that problem on
Right.
multiple streaming services
Right.
where it's like, hey, I know that this information is correct, and then it just doesn't let me in. But then it lets me in on this other device over here. So
Right.
they're working out the kinks, I think, of it because
Mhm.
it's still somewhat new, but the transition is well underway. I mean, ESPN has said, yeah, we're going to be direct to consumer within like 2 or 3 years. Jimmy
Right.
Pitaro, the president of ESPN, has said as much, and he's like, he's not making any bones about it. He's just
No,
saying,
he said 2025.
yeah, he said 2025, we're going to be direct to consumer only, which
Sure.
means you have to pay for, like, it's not going to be something you go through on the channel guide,
Hmm.
go down and scroll through and click ESPN, right? Like
Right.
that channel is not going to be there. It's just going to be, no, you just pay for the streaming service. So like
Right.
that change is undergoing, but the age, for me as a broadcaster and a play-by-play guy, it's definitely been a boon to me now, and I don't think it can be anything but a benefit going forward for myself and other broadcasters because it's creating more opportunities. Like, it's more content, more games, more streams. Like, when you said you got into it in the 70s and 80s, they didn't have
Yeah.
broadcasts of volleyball and soccer
Yeah.
matches and gymnastics meets for every school in a conference. Like, that didn't exist, and now it does, and someone needs to call those games,
Right.
and that creates opportunities for play-by-play broadcasters, and I think that's great.
Absolutely. The other thing is, that back when ESPN started, Turner and USA and others got into it. So we now have, with ESPN, we've got Apple, we've got Amazon, we've got YouTube, and we've got the local situations that you were talking about, the schools. And even there are schools who aren't even affiliated with ESPN or any of the, Division II, Division III. They do a heavy amount of work on that side. Plus, there's now the NFL teams themselves are, spinning out their own OTT channels. So this is really kind of the tip of a very large iceberg that's only going to get better for young broadcasters, and I think that's a really super situation for them and for young directors and producers and that whole routine. I mean, the idea that I could sit in San Francisco and direct a basketball game in Los Angeles, never in a million years, that's a dream. And you could do that now at the soon to be up for sale to Pac-12 network. But that situation where you can literally do 2 or 3 events as a producer or a director and with the same crew in one building is just, it's fantastic. It's mind-boggling. And it's the future, which is fantastic. I mean, I think it's more. There's going to be more things for people to enjoy, and you're going to have the opportunity to do it direct to consumer, as you said. And for years, sports fans have been arguing and screaming, "All I want is my stuff, my team, my whatever." Okay, well, guess what? You're going to get it. You're going to get it very soon. Now, whether or not that's going to sustain it, we'll find out.
Yeah, I'm always watching, how this industry continues to evolve because it might affect me in one way or another. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I very much appreciate, and I know a lot of fans, certainly not all, but a lot of fans in sports appreciate, their home radio broadcasters. But they're certainly not as widely consumed as they probably would have been in the 70s, 80s, and 90s before television was available. Because and it's still an important thing to have because you still have people who, can't watch the game at every single moment or, coming home on their commute from work. And then also after a game, I think where radio broadcasts have really become the most important, perhaps, is providing that home voice for those kind of social media recap videos, the multimedia content,
Sure.
putting the radio broadcasts on there and hearing that compared to what you watched on TV I think has become a really valuable tool for university athletic departments. And you see it all over the country. And the best ones, Oregon had a really, really good one the
Mm-hmm.
other day by a guy who was new to the department this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that he did an outstanding job. And you hear Jerry Allen in there, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
comfortable, familiar voice for Duck fans and such.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always watching how that stuff evolves and curious to see where the industry kind of goes.
Let's go fly through some headlines, okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
We can talk about them. All right, here we go. NBC got Thursday and Sunday night games over the top rated shows this week. That isn't stunning. It usually happens for Sunday night football, but Thursday night football got it this week, and Sunday night football came in second. So there you go. That's not any surprise. Let's again flying through these. ESPN released the ratings of the Texas Alabama game.
Ooh.
And it was an 8-8. Now, remembering again that was Sunday, which was when Spectrum was dark and ABC was dark on those Spectrum outlets.
Is that still going on? Because
No,
that's
that stopped last night.
okay.
4 hours before kickoff of the Monday night game, they
Do you know
settled
how
the,
it got resolved? Because that whole thing was crazy. Like,
Yeah, I can explain if you
yeah,
like.
I'm sure there'd be people. I'm certainly wondering how
All
that
right.
got resolved. Because the fact that there were people in Orlando who couldn't watch Florida and Utah on their
Right.
televisions that is
And Tampa
certifiably
St. Peter
insane.
and Tampa St. Petersburg.
Yeah,
So
like absolutely insane. So like, what happened
and
there?
okay, so the conciliation situation with what did they do? Basically, on the highest tier of charters, which is the Spectrum cable. So if you're paying super premium, okay, you get Disney Plus for free. You get ESPN Plus for free. Okay, that charter then pays ESPN the $10 per subscriber, which is what they wanted. So, in essence, what happens is the streaming services for Disney are free to charter customers if you are on the highest tier. So, what they got is they got what they wanted. Each side got what they wanted. Disney wanted the money, which was $10, which is what they wanted for ESPN and the ESPN family of networks, and that's all the Disney networks. That's the $10 is not just to ESPN, but a sizable chunk of it. I would say $7 is to ESPN. The rest of it goes to the Disney family, which includes ABC. Charter didn't want the competition of having to compete against Disney Plus and ESPN Plus. So it was decided, okay, fine, we'll give you those options for your highest paying subscribers in exchange. So that was at the end of the day, that's how it turned out. So there you
Interesting. Interesting. Well, I'm just glad they got it resolved
Yeah.
so that people can, watch their teams and watch the games and such. Because that was pretty crazy. So but
it was.
basically what you're saying is streaming was, part of the reason that was
Yeah.
getting so
It was
complicated.
it got complicated because basically what Charter was hoping to do was to stop, Disney, from, putting the thing there and saying basically we don't want our you to be our competitor. We want you to be our partner in this deal. And finally, they capitulated. But again, they capitulated because Charter also didn't walk away from the money they were asking for.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
everybody got a little bit of something. All right. Meanwhile, according to Fox's PR, Colorado-Nebraska game was not far behind. They were at
Which is
an
crazy.
8-7-3.
Like that's so Texas and Alabama, big brands, top
Right.
10 matchup, and that drew barely, like what was that, 100,000 more viewers, not
A
even
little bit, yeah.
than Colorado and Nebraska. I mean, you just can't undersell the prime effect. Like that's so wild. And you've been in these situations, Jim. Like that game, 8.7 million on
Sure.
on average for Colorado, Nebraska. the networks can bring in what, tens of millions of dollars in
Oh
advertising
yeah.
spots.
Oh yeah. And
Crazy.
not just that. That to me is you've got and I was actually I was texting back and forth to Dennis Dodd this morning, and it was I was like, Dennis, you have to understand. This is casual viewers. There's casual viewers watching that game. There
Yeah.
are people who have never seen a Colorado football game in their lives, who've never seen a Nebraska football, who may not have even seen a college football game from beginning to end, who watch the game
Right.
because of the social
And
media
that,
strength of Dion.
and that's something that I've talked about on my show with regards to, realignment and kind of the valuation
Sure.
to television networks of these different schools is your value, correct me if I'm wrong here, in the eyes of television networks is a combination, right? It's simple as equation. Media market size plus brand equals total value, right? And there's not a, 1 + 2 = 3 exact, but that's basically the combination there because Boise State, for instance, receives an outsized share of the Mountain West media deal. They don't have the
Right.
biggest market. I think San Diego State does. And heck, I think
Right.
Vegas is a bigger market than Boise. Colorado State
Sure.
is, tapping in the Denver market. Those are all bigger, but Boise State's brand is larger. So if your market in Boise, Idaho is a 3, but your brand is a 9, well, that equals 12 out of maybe a possible 20 or whatnot. Whereas Colorado State might have a media market that's a 6, but the brand is a 2, so that gets them to 8, and that's why Boise State is more valuable in that sense. And individuals like the Denver media market and Colorado fans have always been passionate and sizable, but the prime effect is how you get people outside to watch. Like you said, the casual viewers. Like, who's the biggest television draw in college football? It's Ohio State. Why? Because I watch Ohio State football games. I don't live anywhere near Ohio, but Ohio State plays in big college football games that I want to watch that affect the national championship picture every single year. Alabama's not a major media market. Like, they're in Tuscaloosa. But guess what? Their brand is like, if they're a 20 if they're a 20 out of 20, they're probably getting 18 of those points from their brand and 2 of them from the media market that they're in. So, Georgia, same sort of thing. I mean, Georgia's in Atlanta, so I guess that's probably
Well,
sizable.
they're outside of Atlanta, but
Yeah.
still close enough.
Yeah, but they can still capture kind of the
sure.
metropolitan area and such. So it's an interesting discussion of why doesn't this school have this sort of appeal when they're good? Like Oregon State, Washington State right now are trying to elevate their brands so that when whatever conference they're in, they are perceived as a more attractive television product. But they got left behind in this because they might have better football teams right now than Cal and Stanford, but they don't have the brands of Cal and Stanford. Like, they're probably similar in that sense. And then the Cal and Stanford have the Bay Area media market, so that makes them more appealing.
Now, you said something the other day that you were talking about watching Washington State's game, and at halftime, was it the AD or
Oh God!
somebody
It
came
wasn't.
up?
No, it wasn't even during halftime game.
Oh.
Jim, it was during the game.
Okay.
I went off on a tangent on Locked On Pac-12 about that. It's so utterly ridiculous. Look, I talk about realignment a lot. I led my show with it today because Oregon State, Washington State, and the lawsuit situation. Like, that's good Tuesday, Wednesday content.
Sure.
Heck, you could even justify it on a Thursday or Friday. But the way I put it is like this. In a typical season in which they're going to go over 500, which Oregon State and Washington State, I fully expect both of them to.
Sure.
Their fans have about 13 days a year to watch college football,
Right.
to watch their team play a college football game. That means there are 352 other days during the year in which we can talk about realignment and whatnot.
Right.
And to take away from the game to talk about realignment, I was disgusted with ABC. I thought it was awful. I think it is awful, and I never want to see it again.
Well, I tell you, the reason I brought that up was because I was listening to the Cal game with Auburn to get to the halftime, and I wanted to check because they were having this drone thing at halftime
Oh yeah,
at
that's
Cal.
that's all the rage now.
I wanted to
Everybody's got
see
a
that.
drone show.
I wanted to see the drone show, and ESPN, of course, is not going to show it to me. So I'm going back, and I love to listen to the games on the radio anyway. So I'm listening to. So the play-by-play guy just taking his time off. The color guy turns and no, he's now going to interview the AD. It's like, okay, cool. That's what's, I don't know. We'll see what happens. He's talking about the excitement of joining the ACC during this game. I'm going, oh, what are you doing? You are stepping all over the rest of the season by trying to get these people pumped up about joining the ACC.
It's so short-sighted.
Are you nuts?
Again, publicly, when you're not in the middle of a football game, I understand that. You have to paint that in a positive light, of course. And it's a net good thing for Stanford and Cal to retain the Power 5 status and relevance and whatnot. But the reason this is what gets so smushed by the realignment talk that I push back on. The reason that we care, Jim, is because of football.
Right.
The games. We care about who the games are going to be played against, but now it's almost become something that is, it's moved beyond sports. It's like it is its own sport. Realignment has become its own sport and discussion, and it has become detached from why we actually cared about it in the first place, which is who are we going to be playing in football and men's basketball and every other sport all year round. And just as a quick aside, there is no reason that non-revenue sports should have to partake in this, but they're going to have to. I haven't seen any sizable movement on that front aside from a few athletes. Like there were some softball players or other Olympic sports like that speaking out saying, "Well, why do we have to go?" And I don't know why they have to go. I mean, if this is all about money, you could save money. If you could exist in a conference or just play teams that are, more regionally based, but then that would probably require the conference to actually exist. And I mean, I don't know. So that gets messy and such. But the reason that we cared about this stuff to begin with was football and how it would affect things on the football field. And now it's just become its own entity and it's become its own sport. And I think that stinks. It's interesting because of how it affects things on the football field. Right. It is not interesting in and of itself without the football being a part of it. So when football is in front of you, that is what should be highlighted. End of story.
Absolutely. And the other part of the equation with that is that, broadcasting these games, you just want to really get as detailed and as fun into the game as possible.
Yeah, you just want to enjoy it.
You don't want the business of sports to perpetrate in here. It's just, it doesn't need to be, and you don't need to have to do it. It's just, you just want. Now, obviously, I think in a case like that, that was something that was set up and they wanted to do it. But
they shouldn't have wanted to do it. That's my point.
They shouldn't have wanted to do it, and I agree with that. But some poor guy had to do what he was asked to do. So understood. We've all been down that road too. So there you go. Look, I know that.
Yeah, no, I didn't call. I wasn't calling out the reporter. I was calling out ABC.
I understand.
There was some. Yeah, because there was some. Well, I just want to make it clear for everybody watching or listening right now. Is like, I was calling out the producer. Sure. Who set that up, because that is how, as you know, these things work. Is like every interview that you do is organized ahead of time. There's a producer who puts together a rundown during the game of, hey, we have this graphics package, we have this stat, we're going to bring it up here, we're going to tell this story and everything like that. And that was something that they consciously chose to. That was not an impromptu interview. Right. They consciously chose to do that, and I just got tired of it.
When we were doing Big Ten football, we were told by the league, do not give any other scores of any other conferences until halftime. So, really? Yeah, that's like the only teams that existed, on Saturday were Big Ten teams until halftime. So it's like, okay, well,
I think that's smart though.
Yeah, it is. It's you're selling a brand.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
And you're selling loyalty. And the SEC was the same way. And it was like, no, don't, we'll get there at halftime. We'll tell everybody about that at halftime, but not now. Not now. Now we are talking just SEC football. Well, look, I know you got to get going here soon. So it's time for shameless plugs. So let us know all about what you're up to, buddy.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Smalls_55. If you ever want to talk with me on there, I host Locked On Pac-12 and Locked On Ducks, which are on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcasts Monday through Friday all year round. And I'm the radio voice of Southern Utah University athletics on KSUB Radio and ESPN Plus. And I also am a content contributor at 750 The Game over on their website. I write a couple articles a week about the Ducks and their football program here during the season. And you can find me on their airwaves sometimes once a week as a guest. So that's everything that I'm doing right now. I try to keep myself busy, Jim. I don't know if I'm busy enough. I always feel like there's something more. It certainly does, and yet it always feels like I could always do something more or try to fit something in. But that's where my golf game comes in. That's how I fill the rest of my days.
Well, as long as you're getting better at it, that's all that counts.
Well, I haven't gotten better at putting in about 11 years, but everything else is coming along.
Well, there you go. You can do the best you can do. Yeah. Spencer, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. We'll have you back down the line.
Yeah, Jim, great to be on with you. Thank you so much.
Okay, buddy. Take care. All right, Spencer McLaughlin, who joined us, and we'll see you later, Spencer. All right, let's go down the headlines, as we said before. What we're doing, NHL. The NHL and the NHL Network are going to partner on a Los Angeles Kings Behind the Glass series, which will be seen on the NHL Network. That's going to be kind of like a version of Hard Knocks, and so you can be looking for that. We will let you know the exact dates that's going to start, but it was just announced today by the NHL that the league and the network are going to start partnering on these kind of interesting behind the scenes shows. So I think that most fans like it. So for sure, let's see how that works out. Coming soon, the NHL and the NHL Network with the LA Kings Behind the Glass at training camp. Disney is exploring kid-focused TV game telecast. Now, the reason why is pretty simple. It is that Nickelodeon has been very successful, and they just announced a new weekly series called NFL Slime Time. And it's been, if you've watched it, it's actually quite clever the way they've done it. And they do a really good job with it. So it would make sense for Disney to get back into this situation. And I think Disney has some plans. As a matter of fact, some of the early buzz out is that Disney is exploring these kid-focused telecasts, and they're using, potentially using some of their Marvel superheroes or Star Wars characters to get involved, which should be very fun. So keep a lookout for Disney and their involvement with the National Football League to kind of give a little challenge to what Nickelodeon is doing with their work. So we'll see how that works out. All right. Peacock exclusive games this week was just announced. Sam Hartman and the number 9 Notre Dame team, 3-0, will host Central Michigan. That's a 2:30 game on Peacock only, followed by Michael Penix Jr., the pride of Tampa Bay Tech. He'll be quarterbacking, of course. Number 8 Washington, they're 2-0. They're visiting Michigan State. That's a 5 p.m. kick. There's a lot of drama going on at Michigan State right now as to who the coach will be. We know that at least for this week, it is very likely to be Mike D'Antoni, who they've hired as an assistant head coach. So while they work out the details of what's going on over there, Mike D'Antoni looks like he's going to be in that role for at least Saturday, and we'll see how long things continue to work out there. All right. Big week this week. NFL on Fox is 30 years old. And interestingly, when they hired the broadcasters for the NFL on Fox, it was, of course, Pat Summerall and John Madden. It was Dick Stockton and at that time, Daryl Moose Johnson. They also hired a bunch of young guys. Okay, at that time, you may remember that they hired Joe Buck. They hired also Kenny Albert. They hired Tommy Brenneman, and also they hired Kevin. Oh goodness, yeah, Kevin Harlan. So those guys were hired at the time. Now Harlan was 34 at the time. Kenny Albert and Joe Buck and Chip Carey and Tommy Brennan were in their early 20s, so like 24, 25. The only guy that's with them still is Kenny Albert, ironically. We all know, we probably, those of you who watch Monday Night Football, obviously heard Joe Buck, who is now with ESPN, ABC. And, the other guys have decided to do work on a more local basis. And so Kenny Albert is the last of that. But when Fox took over the NFL from CBS, it changed the way that Fox was perceived, and it really put Fox on the map. As a matter of fact, it changed in many cities. Yeah, that's right, Bill. Yeah, Bill was talking about in his area, which is Detroit. They changed channels from Channel 2 to Channel 62. And Fox came in and took over the Channel 2 channel. Look, they changed channels in over 25 cities. There was a quick exodus of CBS affiliates going, away from CBS and embracing Fox. So Fox made a very calculated move. They took on the NFL. And for Fox, it was a very, very good move at the time. And as I said, once they hired all of their new young announcers, we are lucky to say and happy to say that our buddy Kenny Albert is the last one standing. He is still with Fox after 30 years. Good on you, Kenny. And we'll have Kenny on down the line. And I know he's enjoying his role with Fox. He also is now the lead announcer on the NHL on TNT. So that's good in that regard. By the way, looking forward, we're having baseball. Playoffs are just about 2 weeks away. Keep an eye out, because what's going to happen is those games will be streamed on Max. Okay. So if you're a Max subscriber, fear not, you will be able to watch the the Major League Baseball playoffs on Max coming up in October. Also coming up in October on Max will be the NBA and the NHL. So they're kind of slowly easing you into watching sports on Max coming in the first week of October. Now, also non-related to sports, but related to Max, on the 27th of this month, on September 27th, Max is going to start streaming CNN and CNN programming on Max as well. So you'll be able to get, very soon, you'll be able to get news and sports along with your normal fare, which you can get on the on the app, which of course includes not just HBO and Warner content, but also all the Discovery stuff, which is the Food Network, HGTV, the Discovery Channel, and the full entire library of those two rather content-rich groups. So all that coming to Max in the not too distant future. Let's take a look at some of our other headlines. Let's see. We have coming up, we have the Peacock games. We have, we have last night. Okay. Last night, we had a situation where Aaron Rodgers was injured 4 plays into the game. Well, it was handled very well, by the way. No speculation on what happened by the broadcast team until after, okay, when it was announced by the team, and rightfully so, and then by Adam Schefter, that they thought that Aaron Rodgers may well have torn his Achilles, and that they were waiting for confirmation for the MRI. Well, about an hour ago, it was announced that the MRI did indeed show that Aaron Rodgers would be lost for the season. And unfortunately, he will not be playing for the New York Jets this season. He does have a torn torn Achilles, and so there you go. So the broadcast, which last night was a lot better of a result for the Jets from the winning side. They won it in overtime, beating the Bills, but in many ways a hollow victory because they lost their quarterback. And we'll see what goes on from here. But the Jets beat the Bills in overtime last night on ESPN, ABC. And we'll see now what happens going forward for the Jets, as they will not be playing with MVP quarterback Aaron Rodgers, who's out for the season. And that, of course, is sad. We don't want to see anybody get hurt, and certainly someone who is as important to the team as Aaron Rodgers. So there you go. All right, let's take a quick look around for some questions. We got a little time for some questions. Okay. All right. Justin is saying ratings were good, but they're still not going to outdo Michigan and Ohio State. Well, that is true. Justin, is very likely that each year the most watched game on television is the rivalry between Michigan and Ohio State. And I certainly see no reason why that is not going to be the same case as this year as it was last year. So I'll tell you one that's going to be, I bet, really up there too. And that's probably going to be Notre Dame USC this year because of how well, if they both continue to play as well as they have been, that's going to be a top 10 game. So without question, there's going to be some big numbers on that one too. Is it going to reach Michigan and Ohio State? Probably not, but definitely going to be up there. So let's see. We've got what we call prime real estate. That's right. Fox and ESPN will be on assignment in Boulder, Colorado this week, as each network will send their college preview shows to the Buffaloes. And as they look to go 3-0, Colorado does, as they host Colorado State Saturday night in an in-state rivalry game at Boulder, Colorado. So there's that coming soon, perhaps. And I say perhaps because we don't really know yet. Fox is in conversations and planning conversations with the Big East, the Big 12, and the Big 10 in what they hope would be a tournament. Now, this tournament would take place in Las Vegas beginning, it's speculated at this point from Fox that they could get it done by 2024, but more likely 2025. It's going to be staged entirely in Las Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena. It's going to be an NCAA tournament that comes between the NCAA tournament Elite Eight and Final Four. Now, it's going to feature the best teams that did not make the tournament from those three conferences, the Big East, the Big 12, and the Big 10. Meanwhile, that would likely force ESPN, who has the TV rights to the NIT, to go looking for some mid-majors. So we'll keep an eye out and keep you posted on that. The 16-team competition would be, as I said, held in Vegas. It would basically be over the course of a week, and it would give people something to watch every night from the time that the Elite Eight is played, and of course the Final Four. So for a week, we'd get some basketball from Vegas, and it might be very entertaining. So we'll keep an eye out. Earliest it could be done is by 2024, most likely 2025. But we'll keep you posted on what's going on with that. All righty. Let's see. Aaron Rodgers. Okay, we talked about Aaron Rodgers' problem and that he will be out for the season. Basically, we also got news today that Mike Trout could consider asking the Angels to trade him in the offseason. And it's right now, he has not yet made up his mind about it. That is a report out of MLB Network, and we'll see how that goes. And so, from that standpoint, I think we've pretty much hit all of the key notes here today. We have, if you're looking for something to watch right now, over on MLB Network, Boston is playing against the New York Yankees. That game is in it's the first game, by the way, of a doubleheader. It's in the middle of the fifth. Boston taking on the Yankees 2-0. Boston's leading the Yankees. That game being played at Fenway, first of two there. So by all means, if you're interested in checking it out, it's on the base MLB Network right now. Okay. All right. So let's just recap. Thanking, of course, Spencer McLaughlin for joining us today and talking some sports with us. As we said before, headlines that came out, really the biggest two headlines, NBC with their Thursday night NFL game and their Sunday night NFL game ranked as the two top and most watched shows this week. ESPN, of course, releasing the news that Texas and Alabama drew at 8.8 million viewers, becoming the most watched regular season game on ESPN since 2015. The game peaked at 10.7 million at its highest point. But then Fox also wanted people to know that that Colorado game, which was a noon game on Saturday, had a whopping 8.73 million viewers on that broadcast, which for the second week in a row made Fox's big Saturday quite successful in that regard. So there you go, folks. Hope that you've enjoyed our time here together. We tried to get as much information as we could in there. Had a lot of fun chatting with Spencer. And y'all have a lovely evening tonight. We will be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Have a great day and enjoy.